Hello everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we're going to explore the emotional and dramatic story of a young mother who disappears into the rain with her newborn, the stranger who offers her shelter, and CEO Alex, who risks everything, even defying her own family to find her. Along the way, secrets unfold, tears are shed, and choices between love and duty could change their lives forever. If you enjoy powerful storytelling filled with mystery and emotion, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss our upcoming video. The rain poured down like endless silver threads, cloaking the night in restless shivers. Adam's footsteps splashed through shallow puddles, his breath rising in faint clouds. Then he saw it, a fragile silhouette inside the cracked shell of an abandoned house. There she was, a young woman clutching her baby as if a world might rip it away from her at any moment. Her eyes were distant, unfocused, as though she had been wandering for days. And yet, her posture told another story, that she had nowhere else left to go. Without hesitation, Adam offered her the simplest, most human gift: shelter. They walked together under the drizzle, their shadows broken into fragments by dim street lamps. When they reached Madame Tang's modest home, a warmth seemed to bloom at the threshold. Madame Tang greeted them with the gentleness of someone who knew solitude well. Her voice carried a kindness that needed no explanation. Inside, the air smelled faintly of steamed rice and herbal tea, a comforting contrast to the damp night outside. At the table, the young woman finally spoke her name, Tuna. Her voice was quiet but steady. They shared rice, pork, and chicken. Such a simple meal, but in the glow of the oil lamp, it felt like a feast. Outside, the storm pressed against the roof, but within those walls, there was a fragile peace. Adam didn't speak much. Instead, his gaze lingered on Tuna as she carefully fed her child, every motion deliberate, as if afraid that hurrying might break the spell of safety. But the question still hung heavy in the air. Where had she come from? Where would she go when the rain ceased? Morning crept in softly, a pale light slipping through thin curtains. The storm had moved on, leaving behind streets slick and glimmering with the memory of rain. Madame Tang was already awake, her movements slow but steady as she prepared tea and breakfast. Tuna sat near the doorway, cradling her child close, breathing in the rhythm of her baby's tiny breaths. She looked around at the home, worn wooden tables, faded family photos, and felt a stillness she hadn't known in years. "Rest a while longer," Madame Tang said, with gentle authority. "When you've regained your strength, then think about work. I can watch the baby for you." Her words fell like sunlight over damp soil, quiet but grounding. Over steaming cups of tea, the conversation drifted toward the past. Madame Tang shared her own story, how her son had once torn apart the life she built, selling the home she loved. Yet she spoke without bitterness. Her voice carried the calm of someone who had already made peace with loss. "What happens is just a season," she said softly. "It passes, like rain." Tuna listened in silence, stroking her child's soft hair. In her heart, she felt a sudden rush of gratitude. She was lucky to have found Adam, lucky to have met this woman who offered help without asking for anything in return. But beneath that gratitude, a thread of unease tugged at her. peace like this never lasted long, not for a mother and child alone in the world. Far away from Madame Tang's quiet home, Alex sat behind her desk, the morning air thick with unease. The reports spread out in front of her blurred into meaningless numbers. She couldn't focus. Her mind was elsewhere. It had been 2 days, 2 long days since Tuna disappeared with her child. The absence gnawed at Alex like an unanswered question. Finally, she reached for her phone and called Johnny. His steady voice anchored her just enough to speak. Together, they mapped out the day's plan, splitting up to cover as much ground as possible. Every hour mattered. But first, Alex had to tie off the threads of work. She dialed Huang, instructing him to manage the workshop and oversee deliveries. Then she called Trung, assigning her to assist Huang for the week. The words came quickly, clipped, edged with impatience. Time was precious, and wasting it felt unbearable. When the calls ended, Alex sat still in the dim light of her office. The rain tapped faintly against the window panes. Fear pressed at her chest, not just fear of losing Tuna, but fear of what had driven her away. Alex grabbed her coat, locked the door, and stepped outside. The air was heavy, damp, as if even the weather carried secrets. Somewhere beneath this same sky, Tuna was walking. Alex intended to find her. The rain had slowed to a drizzle when Alex's sister appeared at her door. Her expression carried hesitation, but also a kind of resolve. "You went to see her, didn't you?" Alex asked. Her sister's eyes shifted away. "I only told her the truth," she murmured, "that our family would never accept a single mother. It's not about her, Alex. It's about what's suitable." The words landed like stones. "Suitable?" Alex repeated, her voice tight. "Do you have any idea what those words can do to someone who's barely holding on?" Her sister didn't answer right away. Then she added, reluctantly, "Mother's been arranging a meeting with Mr. Liang's daughter. It's a good match. For business. For the family's standing. You know how she is." And Alex did know. Their mother's polished, unyielding voice had shaped her choices all her life. But this time, something inside her had drawn a line. "My love life isn't a boardroom negotiation," Alex said sharply. "I'm over 30. I know what I want, and I'll decide for myself." Her sister sighed, her shoulders sagging under a weight she couldn't seem to put down. "I only wanted what's best for you." "Maybe what's best for me isn't what you think it is," Alex said, slipping her coat back on. "And maybe it isn't what Mother thinks either." The rain welcomed her as she stepped back into the search, back into the choice she refused to surrender. The clouds hung low, swollen with unspent rain, as Alex met Johnny at the edge of the square. They exchanged a simple nod. No words were necessary. The plan was already carved into both their minds. Divide, cover ground, report back. Johnny would head toward the police station, leaning on his connections to open doors that Alex could not. She, meanwhile, would rely on her own network, calling in old favors from friends who still owed her. They parted with a single promise: call the moment you find her. Alex pushed through the streets, past dripping awnings and the steady rhythm of shopkeepers sweeping water from their thresholds. She ducked into a small cafe where Long, still in uniform, waited. The air inside was warm, fragrant with strong tea. Sliding her phone across the table, Alex showed him a photo of Tuna, the baby in her arms. "I need your help," Alex said plainly. Long studied the image, then nodded. "I'll circulate this. If she's in this district, we'll know." Outside, the rain began again. Small, deliberate drops tapping the glass. Alex left the warmth of the cafe and stepped back into the drizzle. The world around her blurred into shades of gray. Somewhere ahead, Johnny was already knocking on doors, piecing together threads of hope. And Alex, guided only by the sound of rain and the hollow ache in her chest, kept walking. The rain thickened, steady now, drumming against tin roofs and umbrellas. At last, a shopkeeper leaning lazily on his counter squinted at the photo Alex showed him. "Yes," he said slowly. "I saw her yesterday. Tall woman, carrying a baby basket on her back. She went that way." He pointed down a narrow lane slick with rainwater. It wasn't much, a sliver of direction. But to Alex, it was more than she'd had in days. She thanked him and hurried forward, boots splashing through shallow pools, every step tightening the knot of hope in her chest. Elsewhere, in the quiet shelter of Madame Tang's home, Tuna began to speak more freely. She told Madame Tang of her plan to find work, her voice weighted with determination but frayed with exhaustion. Madame Tang listened patiently, nodding as she poured tea. "I'll watch the baby whenever you need," she offered. The kindness wrapped around Tuna like an anchor. Yet in her heart, she still felt the tug of unease, the knowledge that safety here could not last forever. She had learned too well that the world rarely allowed peace to stay. What she didn't know was that beyond the rain-slick streets, Alex was following her steps with the tenacity of someone chasing not just a person, but a promise. Their paths, separated only by a few turns and strokes of luck, were drawing closer with every hour. By the third day, the rain had become less a storm and more a constant, an unyielding veil that blurred the horizon. Alex's coat clung damp to her shoulders as she stood at yet another crossroads, scanning faces that weren't hers. Fatigue pressed in, but surrender wasn't an option. Her mind circled back to her mother's words, sharp and cold, about status, about what was suitable. Those words had been used like bricks to build a wall meant to keep someone like Tuna outside. But Alex had never believed love was about convenience. Love was about how someone's absence could hollow you out, about the way silence pressed louder than words. She thought of Johnny chasing leads across the district, of Long making calls from the station. Each step forward felt like pushing against an invisible current. But still, she walked. Meanwhile, in Madame Tang's small house, Tuna sat by the window, her baby asleep in her arms. She watched the street below, shadows moving in the drizzle. A part of her longed for Alex, longed for the stability and strength she had once found in her presence. But another part feared it. Could she really face Alex again? Could she face the reason she left? The past still weighed heavy. Her child had been her shield, her reason to endure, but also the very thing Alex's family used to measure her worth. She was afraid of rejection, afraid of being told once again that she was not enough. On the street, Alex turned into a narrow lane, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth. She didn't know if this road would lead her closer or further away. She only knew she had to keep walking. Some choices, once made, could not be unmade, and so the story folds back to where it began. On that rainy night, Adam had found Tuna cradling her baby in an abandoned house, and led her to the warmth of Madame Tang's home. There, she had found temporary shelter and the kindness of strangers. The next morning, Madame Tang promised to watch the baby while Tuna searched for work. Meanwhile, CEO Alex had discovered Tuna's absence and immediately set the search in motion. Calling Johnny, enlisting the help of the police, pressing forward against the storm. Her sister's confession cut deeper than the rain ever could. She had told Tuna the family would never accept her, revealing their mother's plan to arrange Alex's marriage with a business partner's daughter. To them, love was strategy, not sacrifice. But Alex was different. For her, love was not something to be negotiated in boardrooms. It was something that lived in the spaces left behind when someone was gone. So, defying the rain, defying her family, Alex pressed forward. A fragile lead had emerged. A lane, a sighting, a thread of hope. But the distance between them was still stretched wide. By prejudice, by fear, by detours neither had chosen, but both would have to face. The rain kept falling, as if holding its breath, waiting for the moment when two paths, one of escape, one of pursuit, would finally collide. And somewhere in that narrow space between distance and reunion, between love and duty, a decision waited. A choice that could change everything. On a stormy night, Adam discovers Tuna, a fragile young mother, hiding in an abandoned house with her newborn. He leads her to Madame Tang's humble home, where kindness and warmth offer brief refuge. As Tuna regains her strength, she dreams of finding work, but unease lingers. She knows peace cannot last forever. Meanwhile, CEO Alex learns Tuna has vanished and immediately begins a desperate search. With Johnny and the police, she follows faint leads through rain-soaked streets. But obstacles rise within her own family. Her sister confesses to warning Tuna that she would never be accepted, while their mother arranges a marriage for business gain. Refusing to surrender, Alex defies both the storm and her family's expectations. Each step brings her closer, yet the distance remains, stretched by prejudice, secrets, and a fragile hope for reunion.